Hello everybody, good afternoon. Thanks for having me here. I came all the way from Germany to present my work I did in cooperation with the Universidad de Talca in Chile. And it's about, like it was said before, the role of social capital in the adoption of irrigation technology. As you might know, that adoption of technology depicts a very large topic in agricultural research, and in the literature, factors described, so lots of factors described to determine the adoption or non-adoption of technology are related to farm structure or farm characteristics. But these factors ignore that individual decisions are embedded in a more complex systems, like we can call a social framework. Individuals often make the decision as a part of interactions in a social process, and these social processes can play a relevant role in the adoption decision-making process. This brings up for us, or brought up for us, two questions. What is the relationship of social capital and the behavior of farmers regarding the use of a technology, and how are the social capital components related to each other? And to analyze these questions, or to find answers to these questions, we applied this concept in a case study by analyzing the adoption of irrigation technology and the irrigation scheduling among wine producers in Chile. In the literature, the main factor of adoption is profitability, and more detailed, these factors are related to economic aspects, socio-economic characteristics, like we can call human capital, or farm characteristics, like or equal to physical capital. In the last couple of years, the literature suggests to focus more on these social variables in addition to this human and physical capital, and we summarize this as social capital. As I don't know how many of you know the term and the concept of social capital. So social capital is often said to be a byproduct of social activities. It can be produced or created directly or indirectly. Most of us create it more indirectly. And it offers large benefits by reducing the transaction costs while increasing the transaction abilities. But most of all, it provides an information flow within networks. And trust, as one of the major components of social capital, can promote this transformation of information to usable knowledge. As it is very important to define social capital very clearly, here's my definition of it. It's understood in my work as patterns like networks, norms, and trust of social interrelationships that facilitate cooperation and coordination of people to achieve desired goals and for mutual benefit. Of course, social capital is also providing negative things or disadvantages. So it has to be constantly renewed or reconfirmed. Too strong ties can lead to distrust, intolerance, or violence against outsiders. So the main example for this is some mafia structures. And also, too closed networks can isolate themselves so that this information flow, which is the most benefit or the main benefit of social capital, is not happening anymore. Additional to this influence of social capital on itself, on the adoption of irrigation technology, we also claim that these three components, trust, norms, and networks, are interrelated. And there's a huge discussion in the literature about human capital. So if there's a interrelationship, do they influence each other, why and how and what? So, in contrast to social capital, human capital is produced individually. And in my work, it is understood as the economically utilizable knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics that influence individuals create and maintain through education and training. Here you can see our hypothesis. We focused on three hypotheses, so the influence of trust and networks on the adoption or non-adoption of technology, and this interrelation between trust and networks. But we also included human capital and physical capital as control variables in the model, and the third component at norms. Human capital we measured in years of schooling, so educational level, and physical capital we measured by farm size. I want to tell something very short about the wine sector in Chile. Chile became in the last years one of the major players, one of the global players in the wine production, as the 5th largest exporter in the world. And in 2013, this export value equaled 1.8 billion US dollar, which is a huge part of the Chilean economy. And with a high area of plantation, with, also in 2012, almost 130,000 hectares. And according to this census in Chile, there was 81% under irrigation among the vineyards. Showed something to the water structure in Chile. There are 3 water associations working together or providing the water for the farmers. The Asociaciones de Canalistas, they're preserving the channels. The Comunidades de Agua manage the irrigation water schedules, and the Junta de Vigilancia, they are controlling the removal from the natural sources like lakes, rivers, whatever, to the channels of the farms. Here I want to show you a short our survey area. So as you might know, in the north there's the desert in Chile, in the south there's Patagonia and in its ice fields. So agricultural production is done here in the center of Chile, and we focused on these 2 regions here in this circle, the regions of O'Higgins and Maule, because they are the main agricultural regions with 33% of the national's land under cultivation. And in 2013, both regions produced 808 million liters of wine, of total 1.3 billion liters of wine in the whole nation. We interviewed 455 vineyards or wine farmers, and they are distributed proportionally in these 2 regions, and also among the communities or the municipalities in these regions. Our questionnaire was pre-tested and standardized, and as we are working with social capital, so with very weak indicators, we also included some psychologists to create this questionnaire with us. And the social capital was measured, or all items measuring social capital were measured in a 5-point Likert scale. And very important to know is that we only asked owners or managers of the farms, and because we are supposed that they are the decision makers, so that their social capital is important for the decisions on the farm. Very short, something about the methodology. We used a structural equation model to identify these interconnections among these variables. In particular, a partial least squares model, which fits best for our data, for this kind of data we had. And we measured 2 different models. So one is the adoption of irrigation technology, in particular the adoption of trips and sprinklers. And the other one is the adoption of irrigation scheduling, as it can named like the know-how of using such irrigation, and so how much water the farmer has to apply in a certain period on a certain plant. And for this second model, we used a proxy of instruments, and these instruments to choose were meteorological stations, plants sensors or soil sensors, and the third, evaporation was the last one. So, and if the farmer uses one of these instruments, then he had to lose at least one of these instruments to adopt the scheduling. About the descriptive statistics. So owners, managers were almost half, a little bit more managers in our sample. The sample was almost completely male, so 93% of the people we asked were male. They had an average age of almost 57 years, a very high educational level, so more than 70% had a secondary school or even higher. And we had a very big range of farm size, so from 0.25 to 1,600 hectares, so as the largest farm, with an average of almost 82 hectares. Regarding the water, already 33% of the farmers we asked had already irrigation technology, scheduling only 23%. And the main instruments used in this scheduling thing were meteorological stations and evaporation. And the reasons asked for the reasons for their water limitations, they said the climate change or the regulation by the water communities. And the reason for non-investment in this irrigation technology already was too high investment cost, which is quite, I don't know, which we had to think about because there's a subsidy program for irrigation technology in Chile. So here are some results. In the first step, we identified these components of social capital. So we identified 7 different components, which can be grouped in these 3 networks, norms, and trust, which I already explained to you or told you. Here you can see for the first model, for the adoption of irrigation technology, we had the size of networks, which is how many people you know in a certain network. The formal network, which is regarding to formal contact, so banks, other farmers, whatever. The informal networks exist by family, friends, so informal contacts you have. And norms, of course, and then trust. We have the general trust, like do you trust in other people, do you trust in farmers, like this. The trust in institutions were the government of Chile, for example, or the local governments, and the trust in these 3 water communities I introduced to you. The results were for both models quite similar. So we had also in the second model these 7 components. Here in the second step, as I told you, we measured the interrelations between this social capital component itself. And here you can see that trust is influencing the network, so the formal and the informal network, and also human capital is influencing the network. So you can say that trust and human capital are the basis to build and to create networks. This is the graph for the first model, and the graph for the second model is more or less the same. Even the numbers, so the exact values, are more or less the same. Finally, here are the results for the main model. You can see that trust and the networks are influencing the adoption decisions, also adoption of irrigation technology or not. And mainly here mainly here this formal networks and the size of networks, and the trust in the water communities, which can be said, or which can be explained by this structure in Chile, this water structure. And general trust, in fact, is negative, which we had to think about it a lot, why it is negative. I show you or I explain it to you later in my conclusions. And also our control variables, human capital and physical capital, are highly significant and positive, like we expected it before. For the second model, also here networks are the main factors influencing the adoption of irrigation technology, and the general trust, which is also negative again, and the trust institutions. Also, human capital and physical capital were, or control variables were positive. So, to the discussion, yes. I showed you that the trust was partly positive and significant, and which is, like I told you, very important for this information flows in networks. The thing is, or the thing that general trust was negative, we explain it like this, that what you can also find in the literature is that when you're too close, when you're too close in your group and you're only getting along with your group, then it prevents you from looking what else is going on in the world outside. Yeah? So this is our explanation for why it's negative. Maybe somebody else has a different explanation. Our second hypothesis that the networks are very important in this adoption. In this adoption of technology was also shown by our models, especially the formal networks and the size of the networks, which can be explained by that the producers or the farmers only look for networks for formal networks to let them drive or let them help to drive the decisions in their business, and they're not like my friend is saying this and this friend is saying this, but maybe the bank is saying this, or maybe my other farmer is saying this, so this formal relations are more important. Another thing in these networks is that despite of this who is doing what in my network, is that it can also have the function of a safety net. So if I have a problem with my new technology, maybe I have some other people around who can help me if I had to figure out some solutions. And hypothesis 3 was this interrelationship, and as I told you, that trust and human capital were positive in building networks, and it seems like they are the basis and the foundation of building networks. This brings us to my final conclusion. Networks are the core component of social capital in the adoption of irrigation technology among wine growers in Chile. And these networks are built on the foundation of trust and human capital. Thank you.